morning, everyone. I'll be presenting on my master's thesis, recently retitled Cultivating a Safe Work Environment, Measuring and Addressing Sexual Harassment in Cannabis Dispensaries, just because half the battle is coming up with an interesting title. And so, sexual harassment can constitute a large variety of behaviors, but broadly, it's any behavior characterized as unwelcome or inappropriate sexual remarks and physical advances. And I would also argue that nonverbal behaviors can also constitute as sexual harassment. And so we know that sexual harassment permeates all workplaces, but it's especially pervasive in service industries such as retail, food, and hospitality. Such industries put employees at a greater risk to experience sexual harassment, especially by customers who sexualize workers and feel entitled to their services. And in service sector industries, there's a prevailing belief in the mantra that the customer is always right, that both allows customers to become sexually forward without fear of consequences and allows employees to respond informally to such behavior as to not upset the customer and jeopardize their job. And so with the understanding that sexual harassment is common in the service sector, my current study seeks to shed light on sexual harassment in the context of cannabis dispensaries. It is well known that the cannabis industry has a long and complicated history with sexual abuse. In a 2016 article by Reveal News, female trimmers from the Emerald Green Triangle of Northern California shared stories of sexual abuse, including being asked to trim topless and forced to perform sexual acts in order to receive payment. In 2019, Vice also published an article documenting unfair work practices within the industry, including 10 to 15-hour work shifts and sexual harassment of female bud tenders from shop owners. Given its history, there's a need to assure that workers entering this industry are protected and treated with respect as with any other workforce. And so this study was born out of my internship last year, where I worked with the cannabis division of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union, Local 770, to investigate occupational hazards of dispensaries. During an Occupational Safety and Health Administration training for cannabis workers hosted by the union, workers, most of whom were women, expressed concerns regarding customers who made them feel unsafe. Workers described instances in which customers were verbally aggressive and sexually forward, which led to feeling distressed and anxious about going to work. As a result, my partner and I from the summer conducted a pilot study to explore the issues of sexual harassment and violence in dispensaries represented by UFCW. Since then, this project has evolved into my master's thesis with a more robust survey aimed at capturing workers' experiences of sexual harassment, among other factors. I have also continued to collaborate with UFCW 770 as a community partner, and all data collected will be shared with the union so that they may be better informed on how to service their cannabis members regarding sexual harassment in their workplace. Through my study, I sought to answer the following 5 research questions, but I'll only focus on and mention preliminary findings for the ones in bold. So 1, how prevalent is sexual harassment in cannabis dispensaries? 2, what are the relationships among race, ethnicity, gender, and sexual orientation and sexual harassment in the workplace? And skipping to question 4, what actions do workers take to address sexual harassment? And so the source population for my study was cannabis employees represented by UFCW Local 770 in Los Angeles County. Currently, Local 770 represents 20 dispensaries in LA County and approximately 400 workers to date. As part of my methods, I collected both survey data and conducted in-depth interviews with workers. And so I'll briefly go into my preliminary results of what I have so far. Together with the union, we collected a total of 117 surveys. Of those participants, 71% have experienced sexual harassment at least once in their workplace within the last year. And Table 1 breaks down some demographics of the participants according to whether they indicated having experienced sexual harassment in their workplace. Of these characteristics, the ones found to be significantly associated with reporting harassment were gender identity as well as sexual orientation, which gets to my second question about the relationships among demographic characteristics and sexual harassment. Regarding my fourth question about responses to harassment, the top 3 most common responses among workers who reported having experienced harassment were 1, ignoring the behavior, 2, avoiding the harasser, and 3, asking the harasser to stop. And finally, I haven't gotten into the content analysis of my interviews yet, but I'll leave you with some quotes that stood out to me while I was transcribing. So, regarding the work environment, one worker said, "My boss was incredibly misogynist. I remember one time he made one girl not be a bud tender anymore. He told her she didn't dress sexy enough." Regarding the harassment training that workers received, they said, "I'm going to be honest, it wasn't that memorable for me to go into hard detail. Like, obviously it's wrong to touch Sarah, below her waist, but where's the question about what do I do if I see that?" And when it came to reporting sexual harassment, one worker said, "I learned very quickly as a result that I can't really rely on my company to help me with these issues. So the union has been who I directly go to for any issues." And I finished.